Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Off Angle. We are on to episode 22. We do indeed have a pretty nice guest coming on for today, a return guest once again, going back through and getting everybody involved. It's going to be ENCE's IGL Snappi joining us for another one. Thank you very much for your time again. Got to keep saying it because I know, especially today, as we've just heard, you've had a very busy day. So, you giving us an hour of your time is really nice indeed. How are things on your end of the world, mate? How's life?
I mean, it's good. It's been a stressful week for a number of reasons, but hopefully the upcoming days will be like we obviously have our normal practice, but be a little less stressful. There's been some unpredictable circumstances regarding cancelled flights from like delayed flight from Air Malta and some personal stuff that made it a bit more stressful. But it seems like everything is going back to normal now, so I can have some more relaxing 8-9 hour practice.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure.
Compared to the crammed one in that you have to somehow navigate between all the different misconnections and stuff. Yeah, it can get silly. It can get silly.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it's good to have you on. It's great to have you on. Things I think are looking relatively good. I wanted to kick straight in with the new look ENCE, right? I do feel that this team is really shaping up to be something pretty hot. We'll move into the RMRs a little bit later on, but we've obviously got some results to go over. Things started off, very well at Pro League, and you guys finished very strong as well. 3rd, 4th, losing out to Cloud9 there. How do you feel, first sort of tournament playing with Nertz and everything? Was that how you wanted it to go, or were you just playing kind of loose and fast, see how the feelers are in a tournament like that, or did you do a lot of prep work?
I mean, I think we did everything we could in order to become ready. I think we had 2 or 3 weeks with Nertz, and we tried to get him up to speed on everything and tried to put him in the most comfortable situations he could possibly be. He still have some positions, obviously, where he needs to still learn a few things, and he's not comfortable yet himself in a few of them. But mainly, he got his own positions, and I think in our team he has a bit more space to also like take his time, and I think that's something he needs to adapt to because I think he was a very very aggressive player in endpoint, but in our team he can kind of also allow himself to go second or third a bit more, I guess, instead of always being the entry fragger, because in general all of our riflers are very like can easily entry also. So I would say that he's in a bit of a different spot now in that sense. But yeah, we did the best work we could, and we're obviously satisfied. I don't think we can say that we can't really allow ourselves to be dissatisfied with a top 4 placing when all of the best teams are present, all things considered, because we still have a few things we need to fix, and we still do, of course. But I think time will solve a lot of it, and then when we've solved hopefully most of it, CS2 will come, so then we can
There you
start
go.
over again.
Well, we'll get your thoughts on that shortly. But one of the things I wanted to double down on here is talking about, obviously this is the first full event with Nertz in the lineup. On top of that, Diaz seems he's like snapped right back into like top form at this particular event, especially once you guys hit playoffs. To take down G2, obviously 2-0. Those two, Nertz and Diha, were like the top performers for that best of 3. How did you guys even put that together? Like, what was there a specific game plan, do you think? Obviously, teams are very hesitant, for people who don't know, to share like, oh yeah, and we anti-stratted them on like round 3 here, or whatever. You don't want to go into the specifics, but was it because of some sort of read or some information you gleaned, or was it mostly just like you guys can fire it on all cylinders, we'll be good to go, like kind of playing your own game kind of thing? What was that all about?
I think on if we go to the game itself, we were a bit surprised, to be honest, about the ancient pick. We had
Mm.
prep on ancient, but we didn't really expect it. But Nerds played a really really good map on ancient, and I think he was the one who got the upper hand on middle, and I think middle at this point is the most vital part of the map. If you can get a lot of control on that, both as CT and T, especially as T, it opens up the map for you a lot. And I think he was having a Hunter's number in that game, because he won a few fights at least for us out there, and he played really good. And so credit to him, because taking out a guy like Hunter is a feat, even though it's only one map, because Hunter is one of the best riflers in the world. So yeah, good job on him. And then I think on Vertigo, um, we had a pretty solid game plan. I think they were actually really Well, this is gonna sound harsh, but they were not the hardest to read, and there were certain tells that was very obvious. So there were certain positions you could abuse on CT, especially because you just knew that they only had one or two ways to hit certain things. And well, I'm not going to go into details. If we play them again, they can maybe see what was the issue and fix it. But yeah, I think we had on Vertigo we just had a game plan that was very very good. On Ancient, it was more about the individuals maybe.
Right. Okay.
Bit of a kind of broader question actually. While we're on G2, where do you kind of place them at the moment as a team? I feel like for a short while they were on top, but it does seem like they unfortunately had a spurt of energy sort of at the wrong time towards the end of last year and into the start of this year. But Katowice is the peak of it. Maybe it does seem like they've filtered off quite heavily recently. So where do you kind of place them? Are they a major favorite for you, or do you think this G2 lineup has sort of already been figured out by the vast majority of teams?
No, they're still a major favorite because I actually don't think it was so much necessarily how they played as a team that made them good. It was just that Huxi came in and he helped a lot of the individuals, I guess, get comfortable and tried to sacrifice a lot by running first, and then the individuals was playing at peak form. When I watched that game, it wasn't like they were. It wasn't like they were inventing something new. They just played solid CS, and then the individuals was playing amazing. I guess you can kind of compare them a bit to how FaZe played now here at this event, where they were winning clutches for fun, 2v4s, 1-on-3s, like just crazy situations, USPs with robs in the rafters, like crazy rounds. And I think that was also one of the key factors to G2 winning. A lot of very very strong individual players, so they're still obviously one of the main favorites going into the major. I would say that the three heavy favorites would probably be Heroic, FaZe, G2, maybe even Navi. Cloud9 maybe. Probably the top five on HLTV, to be
Yeah,
honest,
sure.
is probably the main candidates. I think it is pretty fair that they're still number one. They won two of the last three big tournaments. You could argue that. Well, at least I think the Katowice one was very, very legit, and they won it, so they have to be one of the favorites, and they are a very, very strong team.
I have a question to follow up about G2 because when I look at them, and this is maybe a kind of popular take amongst the naysayers who specifically want to be a little counterculture. When G2 was taking the world by storm just a few months ago, a lot of analysts were like jumping on the wagon, so to speak. They were like, "Whoa, oh my god, I can't believe a new team's here. They're challenging everybody. They're defeating everybody. Maybe in some games it doesn't even look close." But there was this sort of refrain from a couple of pundits, myself included, that kind of cast a little bit of doubt. And we're saying it feels like a lot of the times they are just, like you said, winning clutches for fun. Obviously, that was a pivotal moment in one of their defeats of FaZe, is that JKS and similar players were somehow winning 1v2s, 1vx's that usually go the other way when FaZe is in those situations. So they almost got like bit by the dog that bit them or whatever. So like it was the same kind of thing they were using, and it bit them in the ass. But I look at G2 now, and it feels like, yeah, if they just fall back a little bit from where they were at Katowice in terms of fragging, like it's not like they have a grand strategic baseline to fall back on that works, as their B game or C game when they're not on their A game. And maybe that seems to be a common issue with some of these more star-studded teams, that if you get to a point where your stars aren't fragging out completely, you do at that point need to figure out, how can I at least use these players to their maximum? Do you think that that's an area that still needs to be explored for G2 to make sure that they're a contender coming into this major? Because you say you think that they're a major contender in that sense, but if they follow, in the same footsteps where they could get shocked by, an ENCE, for example, at EPL, like that could happen just because their players aren't as on form as they were, not as switched on as they were at Katowice, right?
Yeah, but I do think that both G2 and FaZe are in that. Well, I wouldn't say lucky. They're just they are in the scenario where they are fortunate enough to have enough good players that they can probably get away with their
Okay.
individuals just
Okay.
playing good enough to get them through on their B and C game.
I see.
It's not like they play bad at all. That wasn't what I was saying. I just think we had a good
Right.
game plan against them on Vertigo, and we had their number in terms of reading them, I think, in that particular
Right.
map. So it was more a map specific thing.
And if you can read them that easily on a map like Vertigo, would it be because of the fact that they can kind of just click heads and rely on that when they're not, expressing some crazy specific style or something to that effect?
I
Is
think
that related?
I think it might actually just be that that map in specific is not one of their favorite maps, and that's probably
see,
why
okay.
they still have some work to do on it. Because I think some of their players have expressed some negativity about the map in
Sure.
itself, meaning that it's probably just because they don't like it so much, right? It's well, I'm not going to go into details, but we obviously also have a few maps maybe where we are lacking a bit, and a lot of the time it is because some of the players potentially do not love the map, right? So
I see,
I
okay.
think G2 will be a contender just by the sheer fact that they seem to have put a lot of trust into Huxi, and he's doing whatever he can to make everyone feel comfortable. And if they hit their A game, they can beat everyone. That's G2. They have Nico, Munesi, Hunter, JK. Like the players kind of speak for themselves on the server, right?
Sure.
Is it a team that maybe you look to model yourself after? Is that something that ENCE does, where you guys look at a top level team and try and pluck things from them, or do you have very much your own sort of game plan coming into it? Because I think that the team that you guys have obviously are trying to work on. Especially at the moment, while it's in a transitional period, work on finding an energy, finding a bit of a voice as a team, as it were. And I'm just kind of curious, if you look to learn from them, or maybe even kind of copy in a sense, right? Or does ENCE? I feel ENCE, especially here, does have its own kind of identity that you guys play towards.
I don't think that we necessarily model our game after anyone in particular. I think all of the teams, if we see something good, we will obviously try to copy it. There's certain teams that we do not look like at all. Obviously, we don't look like a team like Outsiders or even Cloud9, I would say, because they play very, very slow CS. I would say that if I had to compare our team, the game we probably the team that looks like us the most, or maybe I should say we look like them the most because they're better than us, is FaZe. I think that is the team that we have the most similar play style to because we play default based, but on top of that we have these fast explosive things, and I think a lot of different nade variations to create some space in a certain area, which I will try to abuse or Madden will try to abuse, and then the rest of the players will try to kind of play around it and potentially get into a power position where they can do something good from. And I think that's actually also a lot how FaZe plays when I look at it. It's a lot of like mirrors, it's a lot of like smoke fakes, like small smoke combinations to kind of make the enemy confused, and then Kerrigan or Rain will take a lot of space, maybe sometimes twist, and then it will create so much stress on the map for the CTs that the CTs are often forced to react or do mistakes, and that is when players capitalize on it. Obviously, FaZe have done it better than us. They also have insane players, of course. But I would say that if I had to pick a team where you look like the most, it would probably be FaZe, actually. Or definitely, in my opinion.
Well, you were talking about creating chaos with these hits and doing all the sort of crazy stuff, so to speak. You also mentioned earlier that you think that pretty much all your riflers can entry. Is that you think it's not really a happy accident then that that's some of the styles that you play towards? Because you think about entrying, sometimes you are walking through multiple smokes, dodging flashes just to get the first frag or to hopefully set up a trade and stuff. So you think that's probably why you're gravitated towards that in that sense? Just fits your style, fits your players?
No, I just think that is the play style that I think is mostly in the meta and where you can maximize the potential of the players that we have. I would say that the way an in-game leader needs to think is not necessarily about your style. Like an in-game leader style need to be adapted to the personnel they have. For the like, I would say that in general, you need to the in-game leader will always, no matter who it is, have certain traits, but it is the in-game leader's job to maximize the potential. That was also why with the old lineup we were playing a bit more set, the old lineup with Spings and Haters, because we had a lot of unexperienced players that where we
Okay.
needed to play a bit more with certain things where we just did it, and we had agreements on it. Whereas now we have more, I would say, vocal and experience. Like players in the team have gotten more experience. Son Pius is a vocal guy. Nertz is actually also a really vocal guy. So it's more easy for us to just default and just come up with a plan mid round now, whereas it was a bit harder before, I would say. So it's me and Sour's job to maximize the potential of whatever we have. And that is kind of a lot of the time what will dictate your style. And I think the good thing about the last 6 months, obviously now with Valde, the team didn't really fit 100%. It wasn't anyone's fault necessarily. We just never really gelled. But the good thing about those 6 months was that we were leaning very, very heavily towards a default-based style, meaning that I think it's something we built a bit more into our game, that we can play way more default and we can play way more like we put on an extra layer to our game, I would say. And I think here at EPL it showed that we were very good at doing both, I would say. And we probably ran, apart from a few games, we ran way more default than we ran set strats or anything like this.
And it's interesting too, because obviously Nertz being kind of new-ish to tier 1 in that sense, you'd expect him to maybe have a weak point or a stumbling block, but instead he slotted right into this more, like you're saying, something you had to develop as an experience level, like baseline for your other players to get comfortable with. How is this guy so good immediately? Like he's just comfortable already? Like is that the state of play for him?
I think he's just a good player, and then he came in with an open mindset and just tried to take on whatever role. And I think that he is just incredibly skilled. I mean, before the Nertzes, before the Flames and the Spinks and the Exertions came out, Nertz was the best player in Israel. I think people don't know
Okay.
this, that he was the #1 player in Israel, but then he went to the military for 3 years. And this is when the other younger Israelis kind of like went and became actual pro players. And when he came out of the army, he's just been grinding. And actually, already in 2021, I was looking at him. He he was on the radar just from when he came into FPL. So it's not exactly news that he's a big talent. And I think he's just playing a really solid CS, and he's really open to building on his game constantly. And he has a very, very aggressive mind. And I think now he's starting to also build the more passive way of playing into his game, and I think he's showing really, really good signs.
Well, there
So
you go, Scriv.
yeah,
You
something
just need to have a military education,
apparently,
and then
yeah,
you're good for
national
Snappi at that
service.
point, right?
Indeed, yeah, indeed. But I wanted to ask something that I think is kind of an assumption that maybe gets made just because of the way that it looks on the server. It felt like, since adding Spinks and this kind of partnership that came up between you two guys, and then you brought in Valde, and now you've brought in Nertz. A lot of people have kind of said that it's been a 1-for-1 swap, right? That, Spinks and his roles were picked up by the new, whether it was Valde or Nertz, right? It doesn't really matter. People still make that kind of comparison. Is that the way that you decided to play it out? Is that why it looks that way on the server, or are people maybe overblowing that line of thinking a little bit?
I mean, it's a bit overblown, I would say, because when Valde came in, it is true that he got most of Spinks's roles, I would say. But some of them also just fit him from the way he was playing before, like some of the CT positions at least. And also Spinks was a lurker, Valde was a lurker. So I actually say on T side, Valde was fitting in a lot to Spinks's roles in general. It was more about the CT positions. And we actually tried to change a little bit with some of the CT, like from the start, we did change a few things, like what did we change? We had a few changes from the get-go where Valde got moved into some of some other roles. Who was it that we changed? Well, it doesn't matter then. But here, when 2023 started, we did move Valde into more anchor positions. But in the end, we couldn't really make it work, and that's why it was decided that we should try to get Nertz because he would probably fit the team a little bit better. Not because Valde did anything wrong, but just because it was just a better fit for the team. We kind of realized. And in regards to Nertz, he did not. He also got a lot of Spinks' roles, but we did change a little bit. Actually, yeah, this is where we changed. For example, on Overpass, when Valde came in, Spinks was holding A on Overpass, but we moved Dyha to A on Overpass. Now with Nertz coming in, we moved Nertz to A Overpass. So I would say that Nertz is probably playing a bit more of the position Spinks played, while Valde was a bit more changed, I think.
It's interesting too, because obviously you guys did go up against Spinks in Vitality. When your match against Vitality, we saw the clip. We all saw the clip where you were, shouting out the name and stuff. Well, how did that? You got to walk us through that, because that must have felt a little bit good. Even though I'm sure everybody's amicable. There's like the big pat on the back after the handshake and stuff, but must have felt a little bit good, right? To throw a little bit of shade. What do you think?
To be honest, it was just 15, 14 third map, and all I could
Yes.
think about is I just want to get in his head now, because like
Mm.
it's I didn't really care about like anything else. And to be honest, we have noise cancelling on, so he probably didn't even hear me. Maybe he
Right,
did.
okay,
I haven't asked
okay.
him, but I played Face It with him yesterday. I speak with Spinks a lot still. He's I consider him a good colleague slash friend from CS. So it wasn't any like I wasn't yelling any foul words. I was just trying to
Sure.
try to get to him a little bit, and also you can see I was pretty calm after I yelled it, so
Oh,
it
sure, yeah.
wasn't anything major. It was just to troll him a little bit. But no, I would say like I don't care who we're playing. It feels I don't have like a better feeling beating Spinks at all than any other team, because to me it's just about winning against every team, and I don't really have any, I would say, rival. Like when I was in a Danish team, I always really wanted to win the Danish matchups. But now that when I'm in an international team, I don't really have the same hunger to beat any specific teams.
Okay. Interesting. I just like the idea, Scriv, that, at the end of the match, right, Spinks has just lost to his old captain. They go shake hands, a big, and then he looks up on Reddit. What the fuck? He was yelling my name in the last
But
just
we
finding
beat
out
him
later.
twice. We also knocked him out in Rio.
Yeah,
There
that's
you
true.
go.
That is true. Yeah. Big fans of that.
Maybe
Shock
the third
upset.
time is the charm for Spinks. I hope not.
Right. Yeah.
We'll
Exactly.
see. It's
Don't
coming.
be too risky.
It's
now,
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, to touch on the Nertz move a little bit more, is the progress of the team? Are you kind of happy with where you're at?
Yeah, I think people have been a bit more tired after we came home here from the EPL. People have been having to drag themselves a little bit because everyone has been a bit sick after the tournament, and we kind of have to get back on it right away almost, because RMR is coming up, and as you can probably see, the Group B is, well, I would say broken compared to Group A. So
Yeah.
there's three major spots in Group A, and there's no freebies in Group B. So yeah.
Yeah, what's going on with it? It doesn't it feel like every single major cycle there's one of the RMRs is more stacked? Like it feels like they should have figured this out by now.
Yeah, but I think this one is extreme also because
Yeah.
Group A has more ranking points from what I know, and they have 4 legend spots on top of it.
Oh,
So it's
okay, yeah.
actually even unbalanced in terms of the strong
Yeah.
group.
Right.
By definition, should have been Group A, but now it's just, well, it doesn't really matter. I think we'll go through anyway.
Sure.
But I mean, there's going to be a lot of heartbreak in Group B, that's for sure, because we will see some of the major organizations not make it to the major just by the fact that only 8 teams will make it through. And what is there, like 10 big organizations in this group?
Mm.
And then on top of that, there's like really solid tier 2 teams like
Yes.
Nine, Eternal Fire. Monte has been winning like 2 or 3 tournaments. I think we have them in the opening matchup. Aurora had like a 12 or 13 game winning streak or something like this I saw on it. So like
Grinders.
even the tier 2 teams here are really strong. So it's going to be a bloodbath in this group.
That's crazy, yeah.
What do you think moving into these types of groups then, and the way that the qualification system looks? Because I don't think that's something that we got to talk about the last time you were on. It wasn't as close to the major cycle, and there's been a lot of questions around the idea of still having it as an open circuit, still having the weird kind of qualifiers come in. What do you think? Is it a good system, or would you prefer something more based on the previous? Should we have maybe a team that performs well, like in the days of old? Do we have them go straight through to the next major so that the qualifier is a bit more open and not quite as stacked? What are your thoughts on the way the RMR qualification system looks?
I don't think it's perfect, definitely, but I do not think that we should have it. Well, you could make invites to the major based on how teams do in the circuit. The problem with that is, as long as Blast keep their circuit as closed as they do, that is for me also not a possibility, because that will just mean that whoever pays the most gets to the major and gets the sticker money on top of that. So that is not a viable solution. I would say definitely the final the champion needs to be reinvited, just by the sheer fact that I think that the champion needs to be able to defend their title. I don't think that Face should have gone through an IMR last time, and I don't think Outsiders or VP, whatever we call them now, is supposed to go through a qualifier. I think by definition, if you win the tournament, 6 months later, you should be allowed to come back and defend your title. Apart from this, I think that they just need to do better seeding, honestly. Like it's not really that hard to do great seeding, I think. But they do it like a bit more random. They have rankings where they can do it in terms of the rankings. They can do the seedings a little bit closer to the event, and but from what I know, this is completely random. I don't even know how they divided. From what I saw, it was all of the top. Was it the top 4 finishers from the open qualifier? Something that got put into Group B, I think, because I think that's why G2, 9, and some of the other teams came straight into Group B. Because by definition, the Group A is stronger since they have the major winner. And then they, I guess, tried to even it out by putting the top 4 spots or something like this. I might be wrong. I will say this into Group B, but well, I think seeding better is just the way to go, and then I haven't really thought much else about it, but there has to be better ways to get to get the best teams to the major.
Sure, yeah.
Because like some of these teams, like there will be certain teams in Group B that will just literally lose to a bunch of top 10 teams and not go to the major.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you're supposed to be facing off against the top 10 teams when you're at the major. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like you know, it's
I can
okay, a
promise
couple
you,
of them, but-
Group B, I'll just say this now. Group B is way, way, way harder than the challenger stage at the
Okay.
major. And it
So
won't even
okay.
be close.
I can see that too. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at some of the obviously G2 being a big outlier, but then you have Heroic, who's like you just mentioned Snappi earlier. When you had his short list of names, they were the first one on the tip of your tongue.
Then you
You
have
have
Cloud9.
Cloud9, yeah. You got you guys, Vitality, and then you obviously think about some of the other orgs. I mean, NIP's sort of been in the doldrums lately. We
Yeah.
would like to forget some of their previous matches, but they're on paper. You look at the people on that roster, and they're not, they're no fools, right? They're going to be able to click heads with the rest of them, presumably. So.
But I mean, again, how do you make like there will never be a perfect system, but I do think that there's a few things that you could do to make it a bit more even.
Well,
You could
on the
also
subject of
one
seeding,
thing you could actually also do is, and I think this well, the problem is this could also cause some problems in terms of people making small deals. But if you make the teams seed each other, I think the teams usually have a pretty good idea of who is strong at the moment.
yeah.
So if you just make the teams seed each other, we will have pretty even groups, I would say.
Well, that was what I was about to ask you, is because as far as I understand, the way that it has worked in other events that have adopted this approach is every team is ranked every team other than themselves. They don't like, so if you're on ENCE, you're not going to rank ENCE in that lineup. And then they normalize. So if somebody ranks FaZe as like 14th, they know that you're joking. Like obviously they shouldn't. So other than that, like you just take sort of the average after doing those, culling the excess. I know you're big into data, so you kind of know all these terms. I don't have to mince words as much, but like that's the kind of thing that you could do, and then you would get a very nice even distribution. And you would say, okay, 1, 3, and 5 will go to Group A, and then 2, 4, and 6 will go to Group B, and that maybe that would work it out enough. Is that something you are a fan of then? Because you were just talking about it. Do you think that there are a lot of use cases we're not thinking about?
I do think like if you have this many teams seeding each other, like I don't think there would be a lot of teams that would screw each other over, because they might screw themselves over in that case, because
Right.
they don't know what the other teams are going to seed them, right?
Mhm.
Meaning that it's really hard to actually play the system when there's how many teams is it? 32 teams seeding each other.
And
Like
a lot
how
of
do you
them are
play
tier
that
2.
system? There's
Yeah.
no way you can sit and ask 31 other. Oh, what are you ranking? Can we maybe fuck these guys? Like that's
Right.
not gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably gonna be a pretty stable way of ranking the teams. I would say.
Okay. Yeah, the only question then is like, does Nico even know who's on Aurora and how to seed them? Right?
Yeah,
So
but
that
I
might be
mean,
the issue.
I think people will kind of take like there will be someone within the team organization that will take
Sure.
20 minutes to do some research on okay, where are these guys at, where are these guys at. It won't be anything big, but at the end of the day, it also doesn't really matter like whoever is the bottom 5 teams. It's more about getting potentially the top 16 teams in a pretty normal order.
Agreed. Yeah.
How do we feel about the sort of last chance qualifier that they've added into the RMRs? I think it's kind of a cool idea. Let me see here. What one spot is available? I think, yeah, indeed. So you get a contender spot if you win out on this last chance qualifier. The bottom 3 teams will be included in that. I think it's kind of a cool idea personally. I like the idea that you get a few more games in there and a bit more of a chance to pick up a spot in the contender stage. So
Yeah, but how do they even how is this going to be played out with the 6 teams?
It looks
Because
like
there's
we've
one
got
spot.
3.
So there's 8 that go through already. There's 1 spot in the decider bracket. And
Yeah, because what
that's
I
only
think
between the 3 teams that they've got.
this is what I think is absolute horse shit, and it is because they're using the Swiss system, and this also happened the last time. We ended second in Group B when we qualified as Legends, and we got 110 less points in the ESL ranking for going 3-0 when it's out of our control, whatever our Swiss score is, right? And this is really, really bad in this case also, because from what I think will happen is that one of these 9 to 11 teams will have a higher Swiss score, or 2 of them, 1 from each group. That team will play 1 match, I assume, and go straight to the qualification. They will have a chance, they need to win 2 matches. Whereas the other teams, I assume, which would be seeded 10 or 11, like 10 to 11, they will get the spot 10 to 11 in the 2 respective groups. They would have to play each other, then they would have to play again, and then so they would essentially have to go through 3 matches, despite also being a 2-3 team. So is it it's good that it's just because they have to distribute 1 more spot. Is this the best way to do it? No.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tough. You're good over there, Prinogo, mate.
Sorry, man. I just read the rest of the team roster from the B. I wasn't expecting all these teams, bro. I was pulling from memory on the others, but sorry.
Yeah, but I do think that's how they're gonna do it. I'm not certain, but I just know that the last time it was the same when there was this extra legend spot, right? And then they distributed it in Group A by giving it to the highest 3-1 team, and then the number 4 and 5 seed, or the 2 other 3-1 teams would play for the last spot. And in the other group, it would just be, I think, that one of the 3-1 teams just got screwed over or something. No, you played 2 matches. I think you would play 1 match to face the best seeded 3-1 team. And I think it's just stupid because you can't really dictate who you met, right? So why would a Swiss system dictate whether you get legend spot? And it's kind of a lot of money on the line whether you get legend in terms of challenger when it comes to sticker money. Actually, a lot of money. So I think it's bullshit. Just play some extra matches and determine it correctly.
Yeah. Well, in the RMR for NA for the Rio major last time, we had it was overtime special matches determining who your placement at the end of it all for the tiebreaker was just first to 3 or something, or first to 4, I guess. It was what is going on? Why are we playing an arcade style version of Counter-Strike? Is this really the state for the world championship, guys? Really? So yeah, it seems this is an improvement in that, but that's really setting the bar low, right?
Yeah, I suppose it is a bit of an improvement. We circle back to this argument quite a lot, though, to be fair, that the way the system goes down for the majors is just not really designed well enough, and I think that unfortunately is out of the hands of the organizer themselves. There has to be the Buchol Swiss being used or whatever by Valve.
Well, they say that, Scriv, but I don't know. Valve has never actually gone on the record and said, this is our format. We're enforcing TOs to use this for the major. Also, there have been cases where, it's as confirmed as you can get without Valve themselves saying actually they're lying. But when some TOs say Valve are forcing us to do XYZ thing, then they come out and say, some insider will be like, well, really, actually, it's just a cost-cutting exercise, and Valve has said nothing about this. So, that's just a lie, but don't spread this around. And then somehow everybody knows eventually. Shit like that will happen. So I can't know for sure. It does feel like it must be, but maybe it's just because they can't come up with another. If they come up with another format and it somehow is worse than the Buchol Swiss system, they would be flagellated forever, because the community would be like, "How dare you, disrupt the world championship?" But that's kind of the risk you have to take. Surely there could be something better than this. We've had it for so many majors now.
But I actually think if you really want to determine, I would have a different way. I don't think the Swiss system is necessarily the problem. Let's say you have these 2 groups, right? as I said, the seeding, like it obviously needs to be more balanced, the group. So it can never be perfectly balanced, but you can make it better than this for sure, right? Then on top of this, like instead of distributing the spot like I assume they will, it would be better to instead just take all the 2 free matches, right? Play 3 games. Okay, now you will get 3 winners. These 3 winners, let them play best of one. Like everyone bans, like you go in a free man, like a free team veto. Everyone bans 2 maps. You're gonna end on 1 map. Okay, this is everyone has 2 bans. It's going to be a fun way. And then you play best of 30 rounds, like in practice. And then whoever comes out with the best round score or or winning 2 matches, it would essentially just mean that the 3 teams left would play 2 best of 1s, right? And this is just to get the last spot, right? You need to determine it in one way. But in this way, it's at least fair for everyone. Like everyone gets the same equal chance. Now they just play it out. Let's say that Nuke becomes the map they play. Then Team A plays Team B, they win. Team B plays Team C. Like the point is, they will end out with a round. One of the teams will, let's say they all go 1-1-1. But since they play 30 rounds and they know every round counts, one team, if they end in a tight scenario, will end with a +5 score, one will maybe 0-0, and one will end with -5. And then which team was the better team? The team with +5 rounds, because they played all 30 rounds. I think that would be a way better and more fair way to distribute this last spot, rather than giving some teams an advantage just due to luck in a bookhole systems.
I mean, it's a fair. I mean, if we're gonna have to come up with some weird system, right? Like,
I'm not
that
saying
would
this
work
one
a
was
lot better,
perfect.
yeah.
I haven't really
No,
thought
yeah, of
much
course.
about it, but in my opinion, it's better because it's more fair.
Yes. Yeah. Well, absolutely. The main issue here, by the way, is if Furia, or no, if like one more NA team made it to like the next stage, the ones after the new Legend stage or whatever it is before the playoffs, that would have cut this out short, because we wouldn't have had this as a result of the no NA teams making it out. I think. What did we see? Because Liquid was already in. Yeah, they had already qualified. So I think no NA team made it through to the Rio Legends, and then as a result of that, Valve had to take one of the spots away from NA and give one spot to Europe as a result, like just based on the way things worked out. So that's actually why we have this weird situation now. But it was also weird before, like I was giving the NA example before.
Yeah.
It's just.
But I do think there's ways around it, even when it gets
Yeah.
weird. It's just about finding the better and more fair solution always.
So, this question could be fairly open, not necessarily directly at Snappi. I just kind of wanted to get some thoughts on how we feel about the teams going into the RMR. Let's start with A on that one, and I feel like there are a good number of these tier 2 teams that we've been talking about and touching on. Is there any team that kind of stands out as a best of the rest to you guys in Group A?
I would say it's bit of a weaker field. I'm not saying that it's but like it's a bit top heavy. I think that there is probably gonna be 5 teams that by default should have a pretty easy time, and I think it's VP, Mouse, Fnatic, Navi, and FaZe. And I don't think there is many challenges to taking their spots away. Obviously, you should never say never. But it becomes a bit thin because Sprout have been not looking as strong. So it will probably be something like, maybe, in my opinion, Bad News Eagles, maybe Apex, OG, something like this that could potentially take the rest of the spots. But I think it's a bit more predictable, probably, who is going to be the 5 teams that will for sure take a spot.
Sure. What do you think?
down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I totally glossed over them too. They have been in real rough territory lately with all the. Obviously, Dexter did come back in, but it was like after it was a little bit too late, right? Because we had to stand in for that one match, and they didn't end up taking it home. So, yeah.
I think they will still probably make it in this group. I think they would get torn apart in Group B, but in this group, they will probably make the major, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why Snappi was saying earlier it's easier to go to the contender stage than it is to go into this Group B this time around, because a lot of the teams that come out of Group A will be like, oh, we made it to the major, and then like you have to imagine like the chatted out people that are like totally roided out or whatever from RMR Group B are just going to be like, yeah, turn around and go this way. We got to punch your ticket home. It's just going to be what it is. Looking at the way that some of these rosters are going to, because if you already get tested in Group B by taking on G2, Cloud9, Heroic, Like, really, you're gonna lose to OG? Probably not. You know what I mean? If you made it out of that group, I'm just guessing. You know. But
No,
they also just look a little bit, fraudulent, right? Because of the fact they have no IGL. So
yeah, well, pseudo IGL. That's what I was calling him on the cast the other day, Nico. The pseudo IGL.
To
We
be
don't
fair,
even
I
really
actually
know.
think I actually think he has the best communication in my career I've ever played with.
okay.
Fair.
So ruling him out as an in-game leader is not something people should do. He's definitely not a leader though, because
Oh, I see.
he
All right.
he has. I really really love Nico, but he's also a big troll, and I think obviously it's public that now after that he has some diagnosis that will
Yeah.
make it maybe sometimes a bit harder for him to maybe be this like big leader of the team. But if he has
Sure.
someone to help him with that, being an in-game leader, like just leading in-game, I think he can actually be amazing at that because I think he's a super smart player which has amazing communication. Like he hears everything people say in-game, and he's really good at kind of knowing what people around him want. So I would say that he's maybe not as bad as people think. I don't know yet. He
Well,
might
yeah.
ruin it for himself. Who
We'll
knows? But
see. We'll see. Time going to tell. But yeah, I think he's somewhere in the middle at the moment. I feel like that's where he's at. Is maybe mid rounding pretty heavily. I casted them recently in the IM Dallas quals, and they look kind of loose and fast. I suppose that is overspill from Nexa as well. So not too much has changed system wise. It feels like, but. Indeed, maybe the good communication makes a difference. Any thoughts about maybe one win or a Team Falcons? I like the look of one win on paper. I said that when we reviewed who had made it through to the RMR A, but to be fair, more recently again they've not looked that great online, similar to
to
Sprout.
be fair, maybe I forgot a little bit about One Win. They're probably also a pretty big contender to go out, I think. Yeah, One Win is probably gonna make it actually.
Fair
Well,
play.
you just look at the roster they have. They do have a sort of who's who of people who have been at the top and then had to come down and reset their
Sure.
career, so to speak, in the CIS scene, right? And so,
Yeah, but
you
they
know,
just have a skilled roster. This
yeah.
Travis guy is a really good player. Deco is a good AWP, but Forrester is really, really good. I thought actually he was the player that Cloud9 would have picked up. So really, really solid player. Then Boombler, as people can see now, was probably a bit underrated in Navi because everyone put like all the credit into Blade, whereas
Yes.
probably Boombler had a bit more of an effect that people mightn't think because in my opinion, he played a very sacrificial style, which made it easier for a lot of his teammates to get good kills, especially on a map like Nuke. He would get sent in as the bait while everyone else played kind of aim map behind him, and he would kind of find out where the opponents were. So I would say that they have a solid team, actually looking at it on paper, and yeah, One Win is probably they're probably gonna go through this group. I think so.
Yeah, it's a
Would be a
bit.
nice feather in the cap, right? Because obviously Boomich has been, like you said, he's been told, "Oh, you're not a real IGL. Oh, you weren't really like Blade's obviously calling the shots." If he can call his way all the way back to a major, you know what I mean?
That would
Be
be
a
Yeah,
nice
cool.
little
but
thing
he's
to
not the
add to
in-game
the
leader in
team.
this team. It's Nickelback, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
is it really?
yeah.
Okay, that's
That
interesting
was
because
kind
that kind of
of
gives
the
us.
big
But
thing.
my point is just that he's an underrated player. I
Sure,
think.
yeah.
Sure.
Well, for sure. I almost like it's a bit tangential, but it kind of reminds me of like Nexa as a fragger versus Nexa as an IGL. And there's like loads of players who are like that, right? It's like if I had to put you on the spot, Snappi, and rattle off some names, do you have people that come to mind for like if they weren't in IGL, they would be a really god tier fragger, like somebody who might be misused, or if you had somebody in their IGL's place, and then they could just turn themselves loose, maybe a little bit like when Nico was calling for phase or something. People were
I
saying
mean,
just let
Electronic
Nico
is the
frag.
obvious answer because
Oh, sure, yeah,
Electronic was a top 5 player, obviously. Like in my opinion, he was for sure top 5, right? I would even say a top 5 player, despite the stats not showing it, because he's obviously not an AWPer, and AWPers have a advantage in that regard. So I would say he's obviously a guy that could probably turn it back on if someone took over. Then in Fnatic, maybe Messi is a really,
sure.
really solid individual player that probably is a bit harmed by the fact that he needs to in-game lead. That is probably the two players that would come to mind, I think. yeah, I think those are the two players that come to mind, because I think a guy like Tapson, for example, he already plays all the best positions in his team, and he plays more of a facilitating role on the T side, from what I can see. So would he play a lot better if he wasn't in game leader? I don't actually think so.
Interesting.
There it is.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. What about the B side of things then? This is obviously a much more stacked, as we've already talked about, right? There's like 6 teams in there, if you're including Spirit, really, that just on name value alone should be making it through, whether it's as a legend or a challenger. Is there anyone in there from sort of the tier 2 ilk of teams that you reckon could make it through? Maybe a team that you've been keeping your eye on. 9 have performed pretty well recently. Eternal Fire played loads of Counter-Strike recently, so that could help them. Astralis, where I don't really know where to place them at the
I'm going to
moment.
say something now that you will think is crazy. I think every team except one can make it out of the group. I think the
Okay.
only team that don't have a chance to go through in this group, probably, and I'm sorry, I think it's probably iNation. I think every other team has an actual chance of qualifying.
Right, okay.
Interesting.
I like that take. I think
I could see, I was
No,
really
because
hoping
actually,
you would-
okay, maybe, well, 500, maybe not 500, but then again, like,
No, they were on the
somehow,
tour
Bulgarians,
before
bro,
this.
they
they're
somehow
crazy.
get wins, right?
Yeah.
But then you
Yeah.
see Force. You saw what they did at Pro League, right? Eternal Fire, they can definitely upset. Like, just if Centaurus is hot, they can upset a team. Then Monde, who knows? Like, I don't know if they can transition it to LAN, but they have been destroying everyone online. And then we go to the other teams. Like, it's 9. They have already proven they can play at this point. And then the rest of teams like G2 and Astral is coming in from the open qualifier. And then you have all of the ones coming from the major. And I would say all of the teams coming from the major also have a pretty good shot at making it again, because it's all teams that in the top 16. And I would say that apart from maybe NIP, none of them are in terrible shape, probably.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, but you get my point. Nobody is like so bad that they won't have a chance to go out of this group. So I think it's gonna be a lot down to a random factor, which is the book hole system. Like, who is gonna get matchups?
Right.
Where is the surprise is gonna be? Because you saw at the last major, what ended up happening was that FaZe went out 0-3, and they played, I think, Cloud9 and Navi. They played some crazy good teams. They lost to Bad News Eagles, as far as I recall, which was
Yeah.
a
Yes.
very
That was the
bad
knockout
loss.
game.
But the 2 best of 1 losses, it was to like top 5
Cloud9
teams in
and
the world.
Vitality.
This could
Yeah.
easily happen in this group also to some of the best teams. It could happen to us. It could happen to G2. It could happen to Heroic, Cloud9. Like, it could happen to anyone that you go 0-2 in this group, and then whoops, now it's gonna get tough. You cannot fuck up anymore just because of 2 best of 1s, right? And I haven't checked all of the matchups, but isn't like G2 facing something like no, there's who is it? There's like, let me check the group. There's some funky matchups in the first stage already, right?
Looks like G2 is up against 9 to open things up. And
Yeah, there's
Vitality
the opening
Astralis
matchups
is
aren't-
the
yeah,
opener.
Vitality Astralis
Yeah.
is the one I was talking about. Let's
Okay.
say that obviously one of these teams will instantly go 0-1, right? Then after this, then let's say that there's just 1 or 2 other upsets. Then suddenly, let's say Vitality gets upset. Then let's say we get upset, or Cloud9 or Heroic. Who knows? Suddenly you have Vitality against Heroic or ENCE or something in 0-1. And then instantly one of these teams will be 0-2, and it can easily happen in this group.
It's a mad group. It is definitely stacked from top to bottom. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that for me again just makes things a little bit more exciting. I'm kind of banking on some of these tier 2 teams, performing
It'll be
well.
really exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Exciting might be the I don't know if that's the right
It
word.
will also be heartbreaking for certain
Yes.
teams.
Yeah, but
It's- there's gonna
that's
be
what it's all
some
about
misery.
in a way. We'd love a system
just-
that makes sense. We've obviously talked about that,
Sure,
but
yeah.
it's for me. I'm always interested in the storylines. That's where I'm at. So it's gonna
And even if
open the door to a few of those.
Part of a storyline is, having the beginning that makes sense and then an ending that makes sense.
Yeah,
and you
I
get
suppose.
there,
I suppose
a normal way. I mean, you can go
Might be
for
a bit
some
more
like
like
crazy,
this,
yeah, you can certainly do some roundabout, Frank Herbert style, writing, see what you can get around. But I'm not sure, man. I'm just expecting some of these matchups to definitely go south. Like even Spirit Aurora, that could be an upset. And Spirit themselves, you would say if they win against one of these other top 5 teams that are in this group, like yeah, that would obviously be an upset. But it's possible, and we've seen it happen. So
But I think there's upset potential in every match here. Like
Yeah,
oh yeah,
for sure.
Cloud9 Forza, yeah.
500,
best
the
of one.
Bulgarian boys are always good for it.
Yeah.
They're always good for an upset.
Let's say Heroic get off to a slow start, lose both pistols. Like it's not gonna be easy, even though they're against. Like they're probably, I would say Heroic is probably the biggest favorite in the first matchups, right? When looking at the teams,
yeah, I'd say
they're,
so.
they're probably the most heavy favorite. But even them, like it's a best of one. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the other thing is that these are all BO1s. There's no series until elimination, which didn't say phase at Rio, like you were just pointing out, right? So that could be a big problem. We could definitely see something like, I mean, the thing is, the Bucol system doesn't have to give you a sensible outcome, and we saw it when you guys eliminated Vitality in Rio. That wasn't even a qualification match. That was just an elimination match, right? So that was to get to the 2-2 matchup. Like, imagine having to defeat like Vitality, who were earmarked as, like people were saying with the Sphinx move, they should be, one of the major.
They were actually ranked #1 in the world when we eliminated them because they just won Pro League prior to.
That's
to
right,
Rio.
yeah. And FaZe, of course, crashed out. So like you look to Vitality, thinking, okay, these guys can definitely. No, eliminated by ENCE. Like that can happen, and that can be your 1-2 match instead of your 3-0 match or whatever. So, and then of course, like the immortal example of Furia going 3-0, getting rewarded with Navi in the quarterfinals, a match that they probably on paper would have lost had it not been in their home country, right? And that's like, yeah, okay, even if I win 3-0, I might not actually get rewarded for it. So you kind of you're along for the ride, right, Snappi? You're just like holding on to that cart, like hoping that the roller coaster doesn't fling you out of it on the way by. Just silly. This is also, you know what, the other reason why this is mega heartbreaking, or going to be, this is the final major of Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Indeed.
Right? So this is the last chance for somebody like Device to make another major, to go deep in it. Obviously, like there's loads of people here who are like looking at their trophy cabinet like, I'm missing a major trophy, and it would be really nice to, fill that spot up before we transition into the next game. And so I'm sure this is on your mind, Snappi, but it's going to be on a lot of people's minds, like my last chance to get a sticker in the game, so to speak, before we move on, right?
It's not so much about the sticker, it's more about like just kind of leaving a legacy for certain players, especially the players that have been so close or at the top for a long time. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about some of the other great players like Nico. Some of these players are obviously very hungry to get a major. Maybe a guy like Saivu, right? They feel like they've been so great in this game that it would be nice to end with a big trophy also, right?
Yeah, are there any kind of cool storylines that you'd want to pick up on? Maybe another simple trophy or something like that. As a fan of the game as well as a player, is there something that you'd like to see?
I don't know. I would like to see me winning it, but I think also we are huge underdogs. So at the same time, I think we will start at like, let's just try to qualify for the major first, and if that happens, we can take it step by step, right? But I think we will have our hands full just at the RMR, so we have focus on RMR for now only, and we just hope we do great there.
Well, not to pump you up too much, but you have to imagine if you were going to have a loss early on to sort of, we talked about this before, when a team is on the come up, they start by winning really, really surprising amounts of games against surprising opposition that in theory they're super outclassed by. But then they come to a point where they need to go back to the drawing board, they go back to the dojo, get back to, fighting shape. And that's, the Cloud9 loss at EPL. Really close stuff. Definitely could have taken it, gone to the finals. But isn't it kind of like, in a bittersweet way, isn't it good that you got the experience of losing on LAN with this lineup and then figuring out, like, we were close, but we didn't get it across the line? Because it's better to lose in that way. In some ways it's worse, but in some ways it's better than just getting blown out 16-3, right? So like having that little bit of experience
that
might
actually
give
happened
you just
against
enough.
Force.
Okay, fair enough.
We actually lost to them about like going straight to the quarter, and instead we got to play G2 in the round of 12 because we lost that. But I think like that Force match learned us a lot, I would say, because we had a very rough CT side on overpass, and we went in and looked at it, and then afterwards we played 2 really good CT sides against both Cloud9 and Vitality on the map, because we did some, I wouldn't even say mistakes, just some having a wrong vision of how we should play the CT half, and I think we got more on the same page after that match. I would say the Cloud9 game was a bit annoying, to be honest. Like, we were obviously super happy about the result, but it was annoying because in the pistol on CT we were 5v3. We knew where they were, and we lost that. And that also, then we had there was one more very very stupid round. What was it? Well, it doesn't really matter. But my point is, we could have won Overpass, and then it would have
Yeah.
been a 2-0 against Cloud9, and obviously, I would have preferred that. But there's also some learning. But I think there was way more learning in the match against Force than in the Cloud9 match, because they also just played a good game, and it wasn't like we were terrible or anything. We just lost because we weren't as sharp as we were in the other matches, I would say.
How does the kind of learning experience work as a team then? Do you kind of take away from those harder losses, closer losses? What games do you feel are more important when it comes to learning and improving as a team?
It depends. You can learn from a lot of different scenarios. Like, sometimes you lose a game 16-12, you look at it and you're like, well, we didn't really do a lot of mistakes, but like, we had this 3v3 pros planned, this 4v2 situation. Nobody's really fucking up, but people don't hit their shots. That's pretty easy to just, like, you look at it and you're like, okay, we move on. We weren't individually sharp enough. What can you do about it? There's no need to overanalyze those kind of games, because you're just gonna get in your own head. Like, if you didn't do any major mistakes, if it was just about individual performance, sitting and knocking someone in the head for not shooting hard enough in a 3-on-2 post plant, like, what is it gonna help, right? I would say that the games you learn more from is the games where you win just by playing bad CS, or you win by, or you, let's say you get, like against Force, we just had a wrong approach to the CT side, and that actually applied to both maps, and it was something we could learn a lot from. But then you have other games where the opponent also played great, and you were just not as sharp, and you kind of have to differentiate which of the two it is. Can you learn a lot? Like, there's learning from every game, of course, but there's certain games where there's a lot more learning than others.
About Cloud9 specifically, they've been a very frustrating team to try to be a fan of for a lot of people, because obviously you start backing them when they do really well and reach the finals of an EPL like recently. But other times, maybe they win last year's IEM Dallas and then they crash out every other event. They're not really able to do much. Lead up to Katowice, obviously they got eliminated very early on by IHC, I believe. So
Yeah,
now
we were
at the
close to
Mongols.
they eliminated us, actually. We screwed up against them on the third map.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that was also a close matchup. That was in the play-in before even the main event, right? So they could have even maybe not even gone to that.
Yeah.
So, like, do you feel like they're now, getting back up? Between, obviously, it's always tempting to say like, oh, the team that beat us, they were really good. But like, beyond that, is it like, do you feel like they've finally cracked something, or is this just another sort of roster that's like really good but not going to contend for the major title? They're just going to sort of roll over again when the time comes, because they didn't look very convincing versus FaZe Clan, for example, right?
I think they are actually contending, maybe, because
Okay.
I am not on board with this Cloud9 hate at all.
Okay.
Because I think, well, I might also be biased, because this is the only team we keep having trouble with whenever we
Sure.
meet them. Like, I think they won us 3 or 4 times in a row, whereas we don't actually have trouble with a lot of the teams that people consider very good, right? So for me, Cloud9 is a good team. I think the fact that they also don't play the blast circuit, like they are in blast now because they qualified through open and then the showdown, right? But in general, they're losing a lot of events where other teams have the chance. Like, we wouldn't even probably be speaking about G2. Like, this is just something like to think about. We wouldn't
Mhm.
even be speaking about G2 if it wasn't for the fact that they were a blast partner. Because how did they get into this finals? They got in through, like, essentially being a blast partner. That was a big factor, because they got points from their circuit, getting them into the world finals, which was the event that kickstarted them. If they
Yes.
didn't have that event, like, I just heard a podcast with Hooksy where he essentially said, like, he wouldn't know if he would obviously still have been on the team if it would have gone very wrong. Maybe he would have been. I'm just saying that Cloud9 don't have the luxury of kickstarting themselves in an 8-team tournament where they could potentially gain some confidence. I think people are forgetting that they won Dallas, and to me, Dallas is harder to win than a Blast tournament, because people forget that there were still very good teams there. Okay, there was a few of them missing. Like there was 2 big teams missing, Heroic and Navi, but the rest of the teams were there as far as I recall, all of them, right? At Blast tournaments, you have Cloud9 missing, you have VP missing, you have Furrier, you have Fnatic, you have Mouse, you have ENCE, and it's not only about like, yeah, obviously both Navi and Heroic are 2 top dogs, right? But winning a tournament is not only about like beating like the big teams. It's also about not slipping against the other top 10 or top 15 teams in the world. So I think people are hating a bit too much on Cloud9, in my opinion. They don't have the easiest route in front of them always, because they have a really tough circuit. I think the biggest problem for them might actually be nerfs on 1 or 2 players when it comes to the big games. But I think Cloud9 is underrated, in my opinion.
You had an interesting point saying that specifically Cloud9 is a team that you have a problem with. And
Yes,
you
I am
also
biased.
said, yeah, well, you also said that you don't have as much of a problem facing off against some of the teams. Does that mean you think you would have taken it to FaZe if you had managed to squeak past C9? How do you think you would have done in the final if you had gone to EPL? Shadowbox.
Well, I'm not going to say anything because last time we were in the EPL final, we lost 3-1 to FaZe. But
Okay.
I also think it was a way more inexperienced team at the time.
Mhm.
And that was probably, well, I would say that FaZe would still be the heavy favorites. But I do also think that FaZe is a team that is much easier for us as a team to play against. That doesn't mean that FaZe aren't better than Cloud9, because they have obviously proven that FaZe is the superior team compared to Cloud9. But for
Sure.
us as a team, it is easier to play against FaZe, and it has nothing to do with them being a worse team, because they're a better team. But it's just matchups. It can be
Styles, yeah.
map pool. For example, a team like Cloud9 bans Nuke, and they're weak on Inferno, which has been our permaban. So essentially, we cannot pick one of our strong maps, and on top of that, their weak map, which we beat them on in Katowice because we started playing it a bit, and who knows, we might have some surprises again. But the
Okay.
point is that the veto for us against Cloud9 is hard, but the veto for us against a team like G2 is really good, and it's because like G2 bans overpass and they don't like vertigo, for example, right? So suddenly we are favored whenever we go into a veto against them, but against a team like Cloud9, it's harder for us, right?
Fair.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's good to kind of hear these insights and how teams function, how they look at matchups, and how they play going into those matchups as well. So yeah, we appreciate the thoughts. I think it's now time to move on to something a little lighter, maybe not all about the teams and whatnot. Let's get some CS2 talk out
You sounded
of you,
very
mate.
posh. You sounded
Yeah,
very posh there.
I did a
like,
bit.
Little lighter.
Letting it come out ever so slightly. Yes.
There you go.
I could do some accents, you know. Maybe that'll be my gimmick as a caster, the accent caster. So
just don't start saying boom. I'll just
sure.
There you go.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about Counter-Strike 2 and how you feel. I'm kind of on this line of questioning as to whether, do you think like the hard transition is a good idea? Should they have maybe separated out the games? Because especially for the pro scene, I think it's going to be quite difficult to just be thrust into Counter-Strike, right? It looks like all we're going to get is a select few players getting on the limited test, as it's called, the beta, essentially, on Dust 2, which is a map that's not even in the active pool anymore. So I do feel for the pro scene, there's going to be a good 6 months or so of just kind of madness for a while everyone gets used to the game. What are your thoughts on like this hard transition into Counter-Strike 2?
I think it's good. I think you have to set a date where everyone kind of transitions. Like, it's good for, well, the pros need to know when are we playing the next game, right? Like, when is the transition? I would say maybe it would have been better to push it towards the winter break.
Yeah.
Mainly because I don't think the game is going to be ready. And I don't know when it's actually going to start also. We don't know, right?
Not for definite, no. It just said
No, it's just
summer
summer, I
2023.
think. Summer, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think the game is going to be ready then. I might be wrong. I think it might need a little bit more time. So I would say that maybe push it until the next break so that the game is absolutely perfect. But then again, then some people might also, like some of the lower teams might just transition straight away in order to get an edge when everyone else transitions over. So it's always going to be hard, but I think you need to kind of put a date where everyone transitions at the same time to not play 2 games at the same time.
Yeah.
Or I think that was kind of what happened with CS 1.6 and CSGO, right? And probably why NIP got such a big edge, because they started playing the game like half a year before everyone else, right? Also,
Well,
they were
Source
very
was the
skilled players.
nightmare for game developers because when Source came out, everybody was just like, "I'm just not gonna do that," and instead just stuck with 1.6. So the developers definitely want to avoid that if they can,
Yeah.
and that's probably why we're just gonna see an upgrade straight over. Yeah, not
Yeah.
surprised to see all the skins go through as well. I mean, it'll be a bit of a loss that the maps need to be updated, but over time that'll happen almost certainly. So all your favorite custom maps, your favorite aim trainers, etc.
Yeah.
should make it through. Maybe we'll actually get a fix to the fucking bug where the more maps you subscribe to, the laggier your game gets. Would that be nice, guys? Wouldn't it? My friends list is
I
too
didn't
long.
know.
My FPS
I didn't
goes
even know
low.
about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your friends list is big, that's why making a new account makes it super easy for FPS. If you
Yeah.
have ever
Oh.
tried that, a new account on CS runs much smoother because your workshop and your friends list and maybe some other shit also affect your FPS.
Start
for some
using that as an
downloading.
excuse then if I play
Yeah, there you
bad.
go.
Yeah, for sure. Friends list
People
too
keep
long.
adding me. God damn it.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely it's cool to collect some thoughts on how the transition will go across. I think that, like I say, it's going to be kind of chaotic for a little while there. Maybe we do have a few teams come out of the woodwork, but at the very least, we're all on an even keel. So it'll hopefully result in kind of the cleanest gameplay eventually, and the cleanest hierarchy of teams to come through. So I'm looking forward to that, to say the least. What about the smokes? Let's move on to the smokes, right? Crazy changes there. The volumetric smokes, as they are being called. I kind of like dynamic smokes, but nonetheless, there are some big changes. I will open the floor completely on that. You know, what are your thoughts on these smokes? Is it good? Is it bad? And do you think that with the changes to shooting through the smoke, revealing the area, and all that, is that going to make it the end of the spam era, let's say?
I think that I actually wrote feedback to CSGO
Okay.
already after testing out the game. Will they listen to me? Probably not. But I wrote a few things. I think the idea behind the spamming through smokes, I actually think is pretty good, because I am pretty tired of ninja diffusers with a smoke.
Okay.
Like, well, it's not even a real ninja diffuse. In 1.6, a ninja diffuse was like when you actually, went and diffused the bomb in a situation where it was impossible. Now it's just common that you just smoke diffuse, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that is a good change. In regards to the nade, I think it's not a good change. But I do think it can be fine. But the thing is, it removes the entire smoke. I would say that they could make it viable and better if my feedback to them was, maybe you can make a bit of a bigger gap in the smoke, right? Obviously, if you shoot, a little bit of a gap, but then if you nade, you maybe create a circle. But removing the entire smoke, I think that is broken. Also because it's going to lead to choke points not being able to be smoked off. Like, let's say a map like Overpass, you smoke Monster. I'm not sure, because now it's the smokes are spreading differently. But if you can literally nade the entire smoke in Monster Pipe, all we're gonna see is like teams will just always save a nade and 2 flashes, and flashes, by the way, are broken now, because you can't hear anything
Yeah,
at all
that's the
when you get
biggest
flashed.
change, I think.
And I
Really.
think people are talking about the smokes. The biggest change is the flashes. I think that is really, really broken, and I think flashes have become too good. But what I think will happen is that people will just start saving 3, 4 flashes and a nade, and if they have that, whenever there's a smoke, it doesn't matter. CT cannot block you off in choke points, because you just nade the smoke and then you just chain flash a certain like set flashes you have agreed upon, and CTs are gonna have a very, very rough time. Like, obviously pro players will adapt to this, but I'm just saying that I think it's a good tactical aspect that you can use a smoke as a defensive mechanism, which I think that is going to be a bit ruined by removing the entire smoke. So my suggestion would be, make a explosion that creates like a hole in the smoke, but not remove the entire smoke. So I don't know like how big it needs to be, but it could also open up tactical nades. Let's say that you have certain positions that the CT like to play. You nade for your AWP, to look through like a hole in the smoke, which should obviously be way bigger than the shots you do in the smoke, right? But I think that could be a better way of doing it rather than being able to nade the entire smoke. That's
Or
my
maybe
take on it.
also if it like because it's like empty for a long time and then it
Yeah.
recedes back. If it was
Yeah,
just receding back the whole time, that would probably
yeah.
be a little bit fairer too, or a little bit more sensible because then it's more consistent instead of it just being on this like internal timer
Yeah,
that's kind of invisible, right?
but I would say, yeah, but exactly, like if you just make it like, let's say, like you just make a hole in the smoke, like a pretty big one, maybe like this,
Yeah.
and then it just slowly goes together, like
Yeah.
after, like over a time period of 4 or 5 seconds. Like that could actually create a really good tactical element to CS, I think, rather than removing the entire thing. But that was my suggestion to them with my feedback, so I hope they listen. If
Take
they
it into
do,
account.
you
Yeah.
can thank me.
Fingers
Yeah, okay.
crossed. Certainly.
Right. Just clip this part and well the other thing too that's kind of interesting is I've been, playing around with the idea in my head like how does this actually like what other changes might need to be made to smokes if there are going to be other changes cuz the one concern I do have is if it basically devolves into they smoked, I'm going to counter it with a grenade, an HE and then
Yeah, right.
like, it's useless for the amount of time it takes you to rush through or whatever and then maybe you'll see like because it kind of has to be finicky like right on top of where the smoke is to clear it fully you might see teams deliberately missing their smoke by like a little bit of a small amount
Yeah,
just so that it doesn't get fully cleared. It's just like, is this really the margin that we want to be like? As a designer, you have to think, what skills do I really want to test? We might have even talked about this last time you were on Snap because we were talking about the A1S meta. It's like, do we want to test smoke spams and like you were saying, the ninja smoke diffuses and stuff? Is that really playing Counter Strike? Like really though? And so yeah, like it's a mix of the mechanics and the tactics, but at what point is it maybe a little bit too silly? So I would worry a little bit that we might see this very very quickly optimized into something that is a little bit lame, is a little bit less useful or something to that effect, because we already see like on overpass where you have to throw the one incendiary every single time or whatever. It's like, well, a robot could do that. How about I play the game and do something interesting? That's my point of view. I don't know how pros think about it, because on the one hand pros want to have fun and on the other hand they also want to win, and if you win by having not fun, they're okay with that. You look at Outsiders VP, they've been doing that for a fucking year and a half, guys. Like they don't need to have fun to play the game and win everything. So
yeah.
like clearly, but that's also another thing. I know some people have been saying this. It's kind of interesting that nobody's talked about the lack of economy changes. Were you hoping, Snappy, when CS2 is announced, that you would see more than just that? Because it could be economy, it could be something else. Are there things that they could have changed or maybe will change in the future that you're hopeful that they do change, or do you kind of want them to just keep their hands off and like don't do anything?
I think it would be nice if they added the aspect of buying bullets like it was in 1.6. I
Okay.
think that actually added an element that you have to think a little bit more about economy. I don't like it's not a lot, but let's say that you can get an extra flash out and then you just only have 30 bullets for your AK. That's what you did in 1.6 sometimes. You just said, okay, this round I'm not going to spam the walls. I'm literally going to be conservative with my bullets, and then,
Yes.
and I think that could add a small tactical element where certain players could get an edge by just squeezing out a little bit more economy. Also because, like, it was 240 if you bought full clip for the AK, right? Like 90 bullets. I think it was $80. I think that's some small changes that could add a little bit more skill. Or not skill, but you'd have to think a little bit about your buys, and
Strategy,
I think
right?
that
Yeah.
that's an element they could add back. I don't think it hurt. Also, I think they could make the kit a little bit cheaper. I don't think it needs to be 400. It used to be 200, and I never really saw why they needed to do this change, because essentially what it will do is that it will encourage the CTs to save more because they don't have a kit in order to retake. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what do people want to watch? They probably want to watch the team trying to retake, right?
Yeah.
So revert the kit back to 200 instead of 400. Maybe make the ammo, like a lot of these changes is something that was there before. Also, people are talking about like how games are running too long now. I think they could again, like we have some of the solutions in how the game was before, Before the
Yes.
round time, it was 1:45. The bomb was 35 seconds. Like that's gonna make games a little bit shorter, not a lot, but it's gonna make them make the games a little bit more fast-paced. If they really want to make the game more fast-paced, instead of having 17 seconds on the smoke, they could maybe make it 14 or something like this, right? While
Oh yeah, they
reducing the round
extended the
time.
smoke duration in CS2, didn't they? Like it's
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
two
they
seconds
extended the
longer or
smoke
something.
duration, they extended the round time, they extended the bomb time before it explodes. So essentially, who made the game slower? It was Valve themselves. So if you want shorter games, just revert back to the old changes, and it's going to be a bit more fast-paced.
Is there anything else that kind of comes to the front of your head in terms of changes that you'd like to see in CS2, or have you gone over all of them there?
Nah, that's
Don't
what
want
do we
any
want?
wacky new guns. An R9 to go with my R8, maybe.
I think actually it's fine to have a bit of some wacky guns,
Okay.
obviously, as long as they're not broken.
Yeah, sure.
But I do think it's nice to have, like, I think it's more fun to watch CSGO with more variety in weapons than in 1.6, where all you really use was the AWP, the AK, the M4, the USP, the Glock, and the Deagle.
Yeah.
That was it. Like, nothing else, as far as I recall, was well, Galil and Famous. Sorry, Galil and Famous. Yeah,
And
obviously
occasionally you might see a gimmick play somewhere, but for the most people didn't even really use shotguns at 1.6, right? So.
No. These were the guns that was used. I would like to see the Famous being buffed a bit back up. It has been needing that for, well, how long has CSGO been here?
Yeah, since
literally,
2011.
yeah.
Yeah. There
So
it is.
yeah, I mean, there's some small things you could probably change for the better, but keeping the identity of Counter-Strike is the most important thing, I would say.
And do you think that the sort of final question on that front would probably be like, what are your broad, almost emotional reaction, like as somebody who's a veteran of CS:GO, a veteran of CS as a franchise? Do you feel like they've succeeded in keeping the identity? You think anything you're worried about? Like they didn't rename it to attack defense, right? They kept CTT, for example. Maybe even identity down to like the names and the way that is that's been going.
I
So
think
what's your
everything
vibe?
is fine. I said, like, I gave my feedback that the flash is like, don't take the sound away like this for so long, because I actually think it's a skill to use sound properly. So I don't see why you would lower the skill gap by making people basically a turret, blind, and deaf at the same time every time. In 1.6, you could literally hear everything when you were full flash, so you saw people doing multi kills full flash just by playing off sound. I thought that was amazing. Like, you don't need to do it as extreme. I think it's fine that you maybe get like a little bit what is
Deafened.
the word for it, distracted, confused.
Deafened? You thinking
Yeah,
about that?
definitely,
Like
I
when
think
you're
that's
completely
fine a little bit, but to this degree it is now, that is too much. And then, as I said, smokes is a big part of CS, and I think especially now in CSGO, it's such a big tactical aspect. I think it's fine to remove certain parts of the smoke, but removing the entire smoke is, in my opinion, a bit too much. So I hope they will think about that change. But it has kept the same identity. It looks like the same game, obviously, still. So I don't think we're gonna see a big, like, I think the most of the same players that are really good in CS:GO will probably also be good in CS2.
Sure.
Also, there's one thing they probably need to make better, which is the movement, of course.
Yeah.
I do think that's also a big part of being a good CS player, having not necessarily good KC movement, but having good playing movement.
Yeah,
And there's a
right.
big difference, because what I mean by that is you can have players that are amazing with movement and they can jump long and they can do good perfect strafing and all of this stuff. But what I mean by having good in-game moving is like knowing how to space yourself, jiggling angles perfectly, all of these small, that's what I consider good game movement. Where yeah. So I think they should probably make movement a big part of. Well, they should try to improve it, because it's really choppy right now.
Yeah, is that due to the sub-tick system they've got now? Like I've
I have
heard that
no clue. I haven't really
shooting.
looked into that.
Yeah, I've heard that shooting the guns seems totally fine. Everything's good, almost as if it were a 128 tick server, or maybe even better. But that movement seems to have been sort of undercut by that, and that maybe they need to look into fixing that particular part, because it definitely does seem different and stranger. And it's not just the animations. Like sometimes
Yeah.
when you jump, you'll look a little silly or whatever. It's something deeper than that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, but it didn't feel. It felt a bit like I was playing like PUBG or something when I was jumping. Like it felt a
Okay.
bit off. I don't know.
Right.
A bit slow. I can't even explain it.
Well, those are the small little fine-tuned details that you're going to get when you change engines, right? So it makes sense that they would need to really iron those out. And I'm sure they're paying attention. Surprisingly, now they've even decided to, like, the fact that they've made fixes and updates and stuff to the limited test beta so quickly, and that we've had stories about how they like revamped the audio in a short order when they was complaining about like the private testing back a few months ago in Seattle. It's like, oh, well, apparently they're able to do a lot like faster bug fixes, faster improvements and stuff, which is a sign that they actually know what they're doing with this code base instead of the spaghetti that they had with Source 1. So that itself is pretty good. And we hope, fingers crossed, it means that we get, if there are any issues that still need to be ironed out, which I'm sure there will be, hopefully the ironing process is much faster now. That's one thing we can say with some degree of certainty, at least.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to do it, fellas. We've been on for an hour 20. It's getting a bit late here in the UK, as I'm sure it is for you as well over there. Snappi, thank you very much for coming on once again, my friend. It's been good to chat
Thank
to you.
you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully not for the last
I
time.
hope I wasn't speaking too much.
No, you're all good. That's what it's all about, man. That's
good.
what it's all about.
I'm sorry if that was the case.
Picking your brains, seeing what's up, picking your brains. But yes, that's going to do it for another episode of The Off Angle, folks. We will catch you again next week.
You're going to love this video right here. You're going to love it. Check it out right now.